The thing that I can say I've learned now twice is that you cannot force it. All you can do is make the space and make the time and open your mind to the idea that you will be writing something. You will know when you have the right thing because it'll just hit you across the face.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. So, in a world where it's all too easy to get caught up in the daily grind, our guest today is proof that it's never too late to rediscover your passions and make a difference. Andrea Diaz is a public defender, mother of two, and the brilliant mind behind Jury Trial ABC, a children's book that's taking the legal and literary words by storm. With clever rhymes and vibrant illustrations, it has a powerful message about the foundations of justice. And this book is just all about the incredible things that can happen when we dare to dream big and follow our hearts. So, we're going to have a fun conversation with Andrea Diaz. Without any further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What a beautiful introduction.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So, stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Well, thank you. Yeah, before we started recording today, everybody, I was talking to Andrea about how her book is such a powerful thing because in order to take such complicated concepts and transfer it to, what children understand, that's a quite the big feat. So I'm really excited to chat about this with you. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah, but before we talk about the book, I was hoping we could chat about you and your background a little bit. I mean, you're a busy attorney and a mother of two. So, what made you decide to write a book? What kind of led you to that point?
So I think as so many lawyers probably have the same story, which is that we end up in law school because we have humanities degrees and realize they aren't going to make us much money and we need something to do. We need to do something else. Law schools oftentimes, or they do accept humanities. They actually really like if you have a humanities background. And so I think a lot of people who are sort of artsy leaning oftentimes end up in the law. And after having been at my job for, I want to say it was 4 years or so, I got pregnant. I was on maternity leave and I just had a little bit of an idle mind in the sense that I wasn't working, right? I obviously, no one's going to say maternity leave is easy, but I had that space and that clarity, or perhaps psychosis, to dream up this idea. And my husband's actually an engineer. And so when I got pregnant, we got all of these books from people that were science related for the baby. There was even some like specifically about physics, some specifically about engineering. And I was like, there's got to be something for, mom's job, right? And I looked around, there was nothing that I could find. And so I thought, well, why not do it myself?
Well, that's awesome. You found a need in the market and you put it forth. You made it happen. And I also have a teaching background, so I know what it's like to have kids who are curious about a certain topic. And well, what are you going to show them if they're curious about how things like court work? Well, now we have a book to kind of fill that space. So that's really cool. Um, so let's talk about the writing process a little bit. I mean, how did you find the time to make it all happen between raising the kids and working? Well, I know you mentioned you were on maternity leave, but it's not easy. So how did that scheduling work out?
So it took me 4 years, start to finish, to actually finish the book. I like to say it was born while I was on maternity leave. The idea of it was born. My son was a horrible sleeper, and so he spent a lot of time sleeping on top of me as a baby. And uh, I just couldn't sleep, right? Had he been a great sleeper and I could put him down, I probably would have been napping instead of making this book. But because I had to, have him on me, keep him safe, make sure nothing happened, I had to be awake. So I bought an iPad and I just sort of started drawing. And writing, I would just write it on my phone whenever the rhyme sort of clicked. I would just pick up my phone, and I spent so much time breastfeeding and contact napping. And I just, 5-10 minutes at a time, sometimes an hour, hour and a half at a time. Then I went back to work, and the project sort of just laid there for years. My mom every single day was asking me, when are you going to finish? When are you going to finish? You have to finish. You have to finish. And my husband kept saying, come on, let's finish it. What are you doing? You can't sell anything that you don't finish. And eventually, actually, I got pregnant with my daughter. And then I sort of got the motivation again to finish, because I was like, well, this is my last maternity leave. And if I'm going to finish it, now's the time. So, yeah.
So it's kind of funny, a lot of mothers when, they're having trouble getting their children to sleep, they maybe are just like stressing, thinking, I wish I could go to sleep. I wish I could do this. But instead, you trained it productive and use that time to develop this idea. And it wasn't, not to say that it wasn't an easy process, but you were able to make the best of your time. So I think that's something that all authors can learn from because, we always say, I'm too busy to write a book. It's not going to happen. Well, you find the time to, even if it's in those little moments like that.
It's true. And I'm still constantly finding the time, right? Because I run the whole business. I self-published it. And so I'm the warehouse, I'm the shipper. And so I wake up oftentimes half an hour earlier than I normally would to just get orders out the door or do whatever I need to do. So that sort of taught me that life skill of, you're wasting time doing something. Just figure out what that is and stop doing that and do something productive.
Right. Well, I totally relate to that. I mean, anybody can spend their time, just free time. Let me watch a movie. Let me throw on some Netflix. Let me just kick my feet up. But if you schedule yourself out properly, give yourself the extra push, the extra 30 minutes, like you said, wonderful things can happen. I mean, that's amazing that you're also distributing the books too. I think that's something a lot of authors can learn from. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like? Because that's not very common, where you're wearing all the hats at once, right? So what's that entail?
Yeah, it's so much more than I think I could have anticipated. I mean, obviously, I wasn't an author. I didn't go to school for any of this. I didn't really know the industry, but I did do enough Googling to know that I very likely was not going to get someone to publish my book, right? Traditionally. So I just was like, if I want this to happen, the only way it's going to happen is if I do it. I believe in it. I think there's a need in the market for it. And so I'm just going to do it. Right. So I found the printer. I learned how to use software on my iPad to sort of format everything. Luckily, I enjoy reading so much, and I have all of my kids' books from when I was a kid that my parents saved, but also all of my kids' books. So then I looked through everything to try to see if I could mimic at least a little bit what an industry standard would look like. Right. And now I just have this, I don't know, this half of my garage is books and boxes and tape and packaging and all this stuff. And I made a little website, and here we are. It's been a learning process each step of the way, but now it sort of feels so obvious that why wouldn't I have done it this way the whole time, because nobody's in my pocket. But I don't think it was, I don't think I would have chosen this at the time had I thought someone would have published it for me, right?
Right.
I now am so happy it worked out this way.
Right, exactly. Well, either way, though, it's very admirable. It's something that not a lot of people take on, and it's good that it did work out that way. And if I'm remembering correctly, when I was looking through your books, actually, there was a misprint, if I'm not mistaken. That's a challenge that you had to overcome too. But it sounds like you really made the most of it by offering like kind of like a promo for those books, which I think is really cool. It shows resilience. For the audience who doesn't quite know about that, can you tell us like, what exactly happened?
Yes, so I should not be my own editor. That is, I think, something that I've always known, but truly has been proven now. I the structure of the pages, or you'd have the illustration in the middle, and then I have text on top, text on bottom, and that's the rhyme for each page. So on the E page, the whole bottom text was left off. I don't It was entirely my fault. I still don't know how it happened. It was something when I was like clicking everything to send over to my printer, and I just overlooked it. They do give you an opportunity to proof everything. They give you a proof before they print it. And I must have looked at that and thought, this looks great, and approved the print. So I had about 350 pre orders that I had sent out before anybody realized that the book had been misprinted. And it was actually one of my colleagues at the public defender's office who said, "Hey, I was just wondering, is this page supposed to be missing text? Because it doesn't rhyme." And after about a day's worth of feeling sorry for myself and sulking and being so upset, I came up with this idea to just print a sticker with the text on it and send it to everybody that had pre-ordered the book, and send them also a little sticker page that I made with all the characters and everything, because I figured, hey, if you're already putting a sticker on your book, why not make it fun and your kids can personalize it? And it was so well received. I actually was shocked. I had one person ask for their money back and nobody else. Everybody else was sending me emails saying, "I love this. This is so great. What a cute way to fix this." So now I sell my misprinted books along with my non-misprinted books. And if you buy the misprinted one, you still get the sticker sheet. But some people just really get excited about a misprinted book. I think those of us who like to read know sometimes they're worth money. But yeah, so I learned my lesson the hard way for sure.
Yeah, well, I think it's really great that you're resilient about it, right? Some authors might, like, if I asked you that question, you might like shy it away, change the topic, right? But you say, you know what, this is a lesson that I learned, and this is how I dealt with it. And I think, if anything, it drew more people to your book, or on to see you as a person rather than just some name behind the page. They know that you're somebody who, hey, oops, like this happened, but look, here's some stickers. Let's make it better. Let's not waste the whole book. And I think that's a great way to build your followership. So if you were to ever to write like a second book or something, they're more likely to say, "Hey, I love this experience with this author. Let me buy their second book too." So I think that's really cool that you did that.
Thank you. And from your words to God's ears.
Um, Well, hey, let's talk about the book itself a little bit then. We talked about the process and about some of these, challenges, but the book itself, let's chat a bit about it. So it's a rhyming book, it's all ABCs, but how did you decide which concepts to put in there, which ones not to? What was the process like for planning and putting it on the page?
So I was very acutely aware, right, that this was for kids and it is not a kid topic for the most part. A rhyming book sort of puts you in elementary school age. I think traditionally, I am optimistic that this book, in fact, kind of crosses the barrier from an age range. But when I was writing it, I knew, hey, if people are buying an ABC book, their kids are going to be little. Whether they get it and then realize their teenager likes it too is a different story. But I decided on the topics, one, by the letters sort of necessitate, there's only so many words that start with whatever letter that is relevant, and so that was sort of filtered on its own. But I focused most on what I felt was the expression of justice and fairness in the legal system,
Right.
because as a public defender, I think I was trying, one, not to be biased just towards the defense side, but I also wanted to raise a generation of really good little jurors, even if they didn't want to be lawyers when they grew up, because we have so many jurors that I see that don't fully understand what's going on in court, or the concept of fairness, or the concept of innocent until proven guilty, and all these things that are not necessarily inherent in us as people. And so I wanted to distill that down for kids in a way that made it accessible, but also could start a conversation with their parents about topics that were a little more complex, should their parents want to go there.
Right, exactly. And like I mentioned before, it's good to just have that resource for people too. Like when they start asking those questions, well, what's a nice, friendly, calm way to put it so that, they understand the concepts and it eases their curiosity, but also a fun way to do it. So that's really cool. And I'm curious to know then, what exactly was your method for putting it into those like child-friendly words? Did you like run it by like somebody else maybe to see if they agreed that it was like readable, or did you have another child like I don't know beta read it or something like that, or what was that like? To
Yeah. I mean, I like to think that I sort of am a child at heart. So I started off with myself going, would child me understand this? But I did run it by my best friends from law school, who are, at the time, one of them was a mother, another one was not, but I ran it by them. I ran it by my cousin, who was single mom of two kids, or I'm sorry, stay-at-home mom, not single mom, of two kids. I ran it by just anybody that I was around me that had kids. And I said, is this something that you think you could read to your kids and they would get and they would enjoy? And I tried also to keep the illustrations super simple, super bright, super engaging, so that if the kids that are little enough to not know what's going on, they just like the flow of the words and the rhyming, that they had something to do and look at as well.
That's perfect. I love that. And I'm sorry if I misunderstood. Did you draw the images yourself too, or did that
I
was that
did.
okay? Wow, that's really exciting. So that kind of going from like the writer's perspective to the artist as well. That's amazing that you wore both hats too. So you really did. It was a full, you know, Andrea run endeavor here from start to
Yeah.
finish.
I always think about like the intro to the 90s TV sitcoms where they like introduce the character, right? And it's always like Andrea Diaz, author, Andrea Diaz, warehouse worker, Andrea Diaz, illustrator.
That's hilarious. Well, hey, it's that's the way it happened, and now it's out there in the world for everybody to, learn from and teach their children about too. So aside from books, well, first off, I did mention before, you've built a great following from this book, and a lot of people have enjoyed it. But do you happen to have any other ideas for future books down the road?
I actually have one that I'm currently working on,
Okay.
which is a huge just divergence from Jury Trial ABC. I am writing a book up for kids about grief because I apparently enjoy taking really complex adult topics and making them accessible to kids, but it's very personal for me because I lost my grandfather a year ago and he and I were very close. And in the process of my son, who he's almost 5 now, my daughter doesn't really know what's going on because she was 2. She was 1 when he passed, so she didn't really get it. But my son was watching me grieve, and in the process of explaining to him what I've been going through, this book sort of came out of it. There's been some other inspiration too, but I am it's also a rhyming book. It's a poem about sort of what happens when we pass. I'm not particularly religious, and so it doesn't have any religious themes, but it's an exploration of the beauty of the natural world and how when you pass, your sort of atoms disperse and now you're everywhere all of the time. And I am the difference too in the illustrations is that I'm actually watercoloring this one by hand versus digital illustrations on an iPad because I'm so sick of AI art. So I thought, let's get back to paper.
Right, understood. I mean, that is a very serious topic to take on, a challenging one too. But I think, from what it sounds like, you've got the right words in mind and a good vision to put it in a way that children can understand and still respect and learn from. So that's interesting. Is it what's like the biggest challenge you would say in creating that?
Similar to Jury Trial ABC, it's just this could get dark, right?
Yeah.
So the keeping it lighthearted, keeping it fun, fun for a way for kids to still enjoy the book on its own. I wanted to instill wonder about the world and wonder about how things work and sure the life cycle obviously, but that's what I was trying to impart in the kids that when you lose somebody they're sort of always there because when you look at this tree and you're in awe and you're in wonder they're there, right? So I think keeping it on that level made it easier to not get very write this very sad, very solemn book.
Right. I get that. And I get it's a challenge, but I guess, you've already done it once. So it'll, work out for the second one. Is there a certain, release date for this, or is it still like in the works, by the way?
It's very much in the works. I am very likely self-publishing this one myself too. So it's just a matter of when can I get it done. I am storyboarding the whole thing. So my process is it's been written, that's done, but in terms of the illustrating is what's going to take a really long time. So I'm storyboarding it. I'm doing little mini illustrations of what I expect the spreads to look like. And so I'm almost done with that process. And as soon as I'm done with that process, I can start, spread 1. And so I'm hoping it'll be done sometime next year, assuming my kids, give me the time that I need and my job gives me the time that I need to finish.
Understood. Yeah, so I get that. So I guess we just have to stay up to date and stay in the loop and get connected. So what's the best way for us to do so? I'm guessing you have some social medias or a website that we could all, click on after this episode and get in touch.
Yes, definitely. I am the most active on Instagram. I have a TikTok, but I sort of ignore it. Every once
Mhm.
in a while I'll put a video up on there, but the username is the same. It's afternoon_recess, which is my LLC that publishes and prints everything. So afternoon recess with an underscore in the middle. I am also, my website is www.afternoon-recess.com. You can also just Google my name and usually my Instagram will pop up. You can also Google jury trial ABC and basically everything will pop up on there.
Well, perfect. Guys, we're going to put the links to all that in the description box of this podcast today. So you can click over, find the resources, get in the know, and also stay up to date for this next book because I think that these are all topics that people don't put out enough for children. I think it's important that we throw this out there, especially if you're a parent, an educator, whatever it is. So get connected. The links are in the description box of this podcast today. So as we start to wrap things up a bit here, I'm curious to know if you have any writing tips for the audience today. Anything else that you think you wish you knew when you first got started that you learned along the way? What do you think?
The thing that I can say I've learned now twice is that you cannot force it. So all you can do is make the space and make the time and open your mind to the idea that you will be writing something or that you would like to write something. But you can try really hard to write something. And if the inspiration is not there, it's not going to happen. I think that you can find inspiration. And the ways that I personally do that are, exercise. My second book, the one I'm working on now, came to me after a very long run. And I had written 2 or 3 other things thinking those topics would be the book, and it just never quite clicked. So I think that it's important to write as much as you can anytime you get inspiration, but you will know when you have the right thing because it'll just hit you across the face. I guess the advice distilled down is make the space and the time, but just be patient for it to come to you.
Right, right. I get that. You can't force it. If, the creative juices aren't flowing, it's just not going to work. You're just going to get frustrated and lose passion. So you got to, know when to take those breaks and do some self-care and wait for the inspiration to strike and then be ready for when it does.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today. We've learned a ton, and I think we're all inspired to not only be on the lookout for the next book, but also if anybody else listening today has an idea for a topic that maybe children just don't know about or needs to be put into, relatable language, whatever it might be, well, take a idea from Andrea here, do the same thing.
Totally. And I just want to add, if anyone is interested in learning about the self-publishing process, just send me a message on DM, like a DM on Instagram. I'm so happy to help. Just give advice if I can. And if anybody wants to buy my book that is on this podcast, either leave a little note that you heard me on the podcast or send me a DM. I'll sign it
Well,
when I
that's
send it
so
off.
amazing. Wow, you hear that, everybody? A special treat. So yeah, do that. We're gonna have the links right in the description. Click on over, get connected, and yeah, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Danielle. This is so nice.
Of course, and to all of our listeners today, well, until next time, keep dreaming big, keep exploring your passions, and remember that you too have the power to change lives, one story at a time. Thank you for listening to the Authors on Mission podcast. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.